Hello and welcome to Northwest Newsweek. For years, Marten Falls has been working to establish a permanent all-season road that links the fly-in community to the provincial highway network. That proposed access road could then one day extend further north into the Ring of Fire. But for now, the project is still winding its way through provincial and federal environmental processes. On Tuesday, both First Nation and government officials hosted a public information session in Thunder Bay. Located more than 400 kilometers northeast of Thunder Bay, Marten Falls First Nation is only accessible by air or via the winter road network during the cold season. But community officials hope to change that. They're lobbying for a permanent all-season road from Arrowland First Nation near Nakina and explained their position at a public information session in Thunder Bay on Tuesday evening.
To fly anything into the community is very expensive, even building materials, food, access to medical, is very, very tough to get.
But there's still a long road to travel until one will physically be able to travel this long road, which could span 140 to 230 kilometers, depending on which route is ultimately selected. As of now, the project is still working its way through both provincial and federal environmental assessments.
We're crossing a lot of rivers when we build our road. There's always fisheries issues, caribou issues.
Meaning it will also be very expensive.
I imagine the government hasn't said yet it's going to cost.
So why would the province build the road at all? Presumably as phase one of a north-south route into the Ring of Fire. Complicating matters, however, is another proposed path to the massive chromite deposit, an east-west road from Pickle Lake that's favored by a coalition of stakeholders from Sioux Lookout, Webequie, and a number of other far north First Nations who are hoping they're the ones who benefit if the Ring of Fire's financial potential can ever be unlocked. Drug trafficking charges have been laid in connection with a sudden death investigation in Ignace. They come following the discovery of a body at a residential unit in the community last Friday. The victim has been identified as Nathaniel Lacroix of Burlington, Ontario. He was employed by a drilling company working in the area. The OPP has taken a 48-year-old Ignace man into custody in connection with the case. There was big news out of Ottawa this week as Conservative Party leader Andrew Scheer announced he's stepping down. Scheer made the surprise announcement Thursday in the House of Commons and asked the party's National Council to immediately begin the process of organizing a leadership election. Scheer cites his family as the reason he's stepping down, saying the Conservative Party needs someone who can give 100% moving forward. Scheer served for 2.5 years as Conservative Party leader, and despite losing the October election, local party officials still had a lot of positive things to say about him, adding they respect his decision.
Andrew Scheer has proven himself to be a very capable leader. He was Speaker in the House, a great Speaker for 4 years. He knows all the rules and regs. He did not resonate as well as we had hoped with enough of the voters across the country. I'm not certain how much that played in his decision.
He is an honorable man, and he I think ran a honorable campaign. Obviously there were areas of weakness as we see the results basically east of the Manitoba border. Now somebody else needs to take over to go further.
Meanwhile, the new Conservative MP for Kenora, Eric Melillo, issued a statement on Scheer's announcement. He also says he respects Scheer's decision to put his family first and that the Conservative caucus remains focused on delivering positive change for Canadians. Well, Melillo also made his first statement in the House of Commons this week. The rookie MP challenged the federal government over its handling of long-standing mercury contamination in his riding. That contamination is in Grassy Narrows. Melillo criticized the Trudeau Liberals for failing to move forward with a promised mercury treatment facility for band members. The Kenora MP demanded that the government set a date for its opening.
Now in 2017, this government promised a treatment center to support the community. It is now nearly 2020, Mr. Speaker, and we have still seen no action. Could the Minister of Indigenous Services please tell the House when the government will finally deliver on their promise and deliver support for this community.
Indigenous Services Minister Mark Miller says his government is still committed to a mercury treatment facility and promised to deliver an update to the House soon. In provincial politics, the ongoing youth suicide problem in remote northwestern Ontario communities was front and center at Queen's Park on Thursday. Kiiwetinoong MPP Saul Mamakwa wants the government to do more to help those communities deal with the root causes of the issue. After reading the names of children aged 12 to 14 who have committed suicide, Mamakwa asked the Ford government to pledge more assistance. But Indigenous Services Minister Greg Rickford chose to focus instead on what the province is already doing.
Premier, there needs to be dedicated resources and a specialized strategy to address suicide among First Nations youth.
Question.
Will Ontario make this commitment today?
Reducing the frequency in communities by having hub services, wraparound services for teens in crisis in the school, a facility in their community. For example, I'm thinking about Pekanjika, Mr. Speaker, where we've made significant progress.
Rickford says the focus should be on fostering economic opportunities in northern communities in order to raise the standard of living. Meanwhile, Northern Ontario families descended on Queen's Park on Tuesday to demand more services be put in place for children with autism. Thunder Bay Atikokan MPP Judith Monteith Farrell raised the issue with the Ford government during the morning debate in the legislature. She called on Children's Minister Todd Smith to respond to the family's dire situation.
Service providers are laying off staff and discontinuing services. Something this government knew would happen, but did it anyway. Meanwhile, this government says they won't do anything to help until maybe next April. Northern families cannot wait. Adriana Atkins from Manitouwadge, who is here today, must travel with her son 400 kilometers to Thunder Bay for services he needs. Adriana needs our help now and not next year. When is this government going to fix the problems it created for Northern families?
I went out and met with a lot of the families who are here in the north, in Kenora and in Thunder Bay and in Sault Ste. Marie and Sudbury and also in North Bay, Mr. Speaker, just a few of the stops over the summer. But while I was doing that in conjunction with that tour and meeting with families face-to-face, Mr. Speaker, our Ontario Autism panel was meeting throughout the summer. They've made well over 100 recommendations, Mr. Speaker. We're working extremely hard to implement all of the recommendations that that panel has made, Mr. Speaker, so that we can have an autism program to be proud of.
It's an unseen but critical piece of municipal infrastructure. It's also one of the most expensive to repair. And it appears the town of Fort Frances is going to have to deal with its aging water and sewer systems soon. That was one of many topics discussed at council this week. Adam Riley has the details.
And every year it gets worse. You dig yourself deeper every year because it is so very expensive.
Fort Frances Mayor June Call is lamenting over a report on the town's water and sewer assets, which will require some serious capital investment going into 2020 and beyond.
The town's asset management plan has identified 30 kilometers of sewer pipe and 40 kilometers of water main that is in desperate need of replacement, at a combined total cost of $51 million.
In an attempt to keep on top of costs, water and sewer rates will be increasing by 2.8% for residential users and 2.2% for commercial and industrial users, which will help the town reach its target revenue of just over $5 million. Call says fortunately there is some extra help coming.
We are getting some funding for our Connecting Link roadway next year, as well as Colonization Road, and by asking for extra funds and by getting these added increases in our taxes for water and sewer, we're able to try to alleviate some of the problems that we have.
Council also discussed a motion to implement the removal of non-resident user fees at the town's Memorial Sports Centre on a one-year trial basis. The motive is to attract users from nearby Alberton Township and Couchiching First Nation, which bookend the west and east ends of town. Currently, non-residents pay 25% more to use the facility. However, there was some opposition to the motion, with one councillor opting for alternate solutions.
What if we were to approach area communities and First Nations and ask them maybe to pay a per capita for their residents to use these facilities that they don't have, and possibly we can raise the income that way?
The motion to implement the trial went to vote, with council voting 5-2 in favour. Call understands why there were dissenting opinions on the subject.
We all do care about the amount of tax money and the amount of user fees that our residents do spend, but we're truly hoping that maybe this will lower the tax money that is involved in user fees for our community services and facilities.
If the trial proves to be unsuccessful, Call says it will not continue in 2021. Adam Riley, TBT News.
When we come back, Kenora gets money from the province to spur economic development. The province is investing in several ventures in Kenora to kickstart economic development in some sectors and prepare others for the future. The announcements were made recently by Northern Development Minister Greg Rickford. Adam Riley has the details.
Kenora Rainy River MPP Greg Rickford was bringing early Christmas gifts to various parties in the city of Kenora earlier this month. First on his list was an investment of $22,500 for the Mount Evergreen Ski Club, which will be used to bring in a consultant to see if the property could be used year-round as opposed to the first and last 2 months of the year.
It's a shame that something this good, this close to the city of Kenora, like within the city boundaries, 10 minutes from downtown, sits vacant. So there's lots of opportunity. We look at it as a way to engage the community, to see what needs are out there, what needs can we fulfill at this location.
Kenora is a destination hotspot during the summer, with many events like Harborfest taking place in the downtown area, whereas the ski club sits vacant. Rickford says this investment is consistent with the idea of what he calls the Kenora of the future.
We know how amazing it is here in the summer, and many of us in the winter have pastimes that we enjoy. In particular, for me, a snowshoer. But to ensure that we have an opportunity to showcase our amazing place 4 seasons, this is just the start.
City Councillor Chris Van Willingham agrees with both McCallum and Rickford on the potential of the club, adding the funding could be combined with money from the municipality as the ski club is a constant topic when it comes to unrecognized economic potential.
Every meeting we have, we talk about the winter season and the tourism and things that can be done here. There's not a whole lot that can be shared right now, but rest assured, City Council is talking about it.
Rickford later visited the Lake of the Woods Museum to announce $45,000 to help the city identify and take inventory of properties to assist potential investors. He says everyone can see vacant property, but this initiative goes deeper.
Identifying the properties, so the true boundaries of where they are in the city, staking them out, if you will, and identifying where they're currently zoned, where they might be zoned differently is an important part of creating economic opportunity here in the city.
Rickford adds there is even some provincial property which could be included and earmarked for various projects. Manager of Development Services Adam Smith says housing is definitely a priority.
It's a huge need, and especially when you're in Northern Ontario and particularly Kenora, it's a very challenging development environment. So if there's a way that we can make these lands as investment ready as possible, then certainly affordable housing can be facilitated in a much easier kind of manner.
Adam Riley, TBT News.
Terrace Bay is changing the timeline in which it passes the town's annual budget. A presentation from Treasurer Stan Spadoni shows a plan to have the town pass its 2020 budget and every subsequent year's budget before the end of March. CAO John Hall says most levies in the town don't change year to year, and if they do, they're given advance notice. With this new plan, the town will begin building the budget based on previous years and incorporate a hypothetical increase during public consultations in the fall. Hall believes having the budget passed before the end of March, while aggressive from an administrative perspective, will benefit the town.
It just gets, from our perspective, administration side, it gets us started so much earlier in starting some of the projects we budgeted for in year. We have a short construction season. We have a short, with everyone's holidays and that sort of thing too. We have a shortened working year essentially if we're still deliberating budget in April and May.
The province wants municipalities to bring their fiscal years in line with that of Ontario, which begins March 31st. The Australian company T-Core has struck a deal with Toronto-based H2O Power to acquire a 49% interest in 5 hydroelectrical dams here in the Northwest. Those dams are located throughout the Kenora and Rainy River areas. One facility is in Fort Frances, 2 are on the Seine River, and 2 more are located in Kenora. The clock continues to count down on a deal between the town of Fort Frances and River's Edge Developments over the former Resolute Mill. But there appears to be a faint glimmer of hope over the future of the facility. The 90-day deal, which allows potential buyers access to the mill to inspect equipment, expires on December 31st. Late last month, Repap, a company which had expressed interest in the facility for almost a year, backed away from the property, putting the future of the facility in doubt. But Mayor June Call says a new company has come forward. And while it won't bring the pulp mill equipment back online, it is a wood processing business, and she notes there are others interested in smaller parcels of the mill property as well.
That actually has just happened in the last several days. I'm not going to divulge any names yet because it's up to the numbered company and this other company to decide on what deal will be made, but it's looking hopeful again.
Call admits, however, that whatever happens, there will be a major reduction in the town's industrial tax base. She insists no matter what, she's proud of the pressure the town has put on Resolute, the province, and River's Edge to bring a new business to the site. River's Edge CEO Justice Veldman says discussions are very preliminary and no purchase terms have been set, but he's prepared to consider extending the end-of-year deadline to accommodate the proponent. Coming up, officials with Thunder Bay's District Social Services Board say budget cuts are coming. Residents in the Thunder Bay District will notice a reduction in Ontario Works programming after a more than $2 million decrease in next year's DSAB budget. On Thursday, board members approved the $98 million financial plan for 2020, which is down from around $100 million this past year. Much of that variance comes after the Ontario Works Addiction Services program was scrapped last July and because of program delivery cuts. Chief Administrator Bill Bradica says those two reductions alone add up to a $1.5 million decrease, and the DSAB has been forced to adjust.
Our hope is that some of the additional money that has been announced by the province will make its way to some of the local agencies that we partnered with under that program to hopefully take up some of that loss that's being felt. We don't know that yet, but that's the hope. In terms of delivery of Ontario Works, we've had to look at some of our processes to try to streamline some of them to adapt to having less funding and effectively less staff.
Despite the overall drop in the operating budget, the capital budget pertaining to social housing projects is similar to last year's at just over $3.5 million. But the operating cost of social housing rose by roughly $700,000. As a result, the DSAB's municipal levies will rise by approximately 1% next year. Residents and those traveling along the highway in Shunya can feel a little safer now after the fire department got some new equipment. This brand new pumper truck arrived in Shunya last weekend. It's been a 3-year process to acquire the vehicle, which is valued at $550,000. The addition will replace an old pumper truck that has been in use since 1995. Chief Blair Arthur says the new truck comes with many technological advancements that will enhance their ability to fight fires.
We use compressed air foam now on the truck versus just water. We had foam on the old truck, but that system is just outdated and antiquated. So the technology of using compressed air foam with water makes a big difference for us for longevity of how long we can fight a fire without hydrants.
The department is also planning to purchase another new tanker truck in the new year. Physical construction is still a long way off, but work continues all the same on the All Nations Hospital in Kenora. The facility will replace the aging Lake of the Woods District Hospital and, as the name implies, will incorporate cultural elements of both Indigenous and non-Indigenous group. Hospital CEO Ray Rossett says the working group for the new hospital is moving into the detailed planning phase that's expected to take about 2 years.
We start our community engagement, though, which is the first phase of gaining knowledge, both for Indigenous communities and non-Indigenous, all starting in, like the First Nation community consultation has already started. The non-Indigenous consultation will start in January.
Those consultations will wrap up by the middle of next year. Rossett adds the new All Nations Health Partners Ontario Health Team, which was announced last week, will play an important role in the development of the new hospital, especially as it works with other health service providers. And that'll do it for this edition of Northwest Newsweek. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.